Hello, wonderful viewers. Welcome to another edition of your favorite family moment show, the one that keeps the family together. Today we shall be exploring a very fascinating topic that gets to the very heart of parenting, raising a mini you or an entirely different person. Most times many of us have been caught saying, oh, that child is exactly like me, or that is a mini me. I remain your anchor and faculty member for the Family Moment Show, Stella Erianietoy. See you in a moment after this short break.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome back from that short break. Is still the Family Moment Show, keeping us together. I am your anchor and faculty member, Stella Erianietoy. In the studio today, like I mentioned earlier, is a seasoned guest. His name is Ayodeji Olasanmi, a highly intelligent course trainer with strong academic background in English up to the master's level from the Extend University of Lagos. He is widely recognized as the founder of the annual Lagos Praise, a prayer works that brings the community together in a spirit of unity and faith. He is also the brain and the force behind the Leadership with Olasanmi initiative, which aims to empower individuals through leadership development. As the CEO of Olasanmi Home Tutors, Mr. Ayodeji oversees a range of educational services including tutoring, coaching, consulting, and training. He is currently the executive director at LIBL Academy. Mr. Ayodeji is happily married with children. Welcome on the show, Mr. Ayodeji.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. We also have in the studio today Mrs. Olubusola Adesanya. Mrs. Olubusola is a visionary entrepreneur, dedicated teacher, and accomplished sales and marketing executive, driven by a passion for unlocking the potential in children and young adults. With a multifaceted career spanning various fields, Mrs. Felicia Olubusola Adesanya has established herself as a respected voice in education, family development, and nation building. As an entrepreneur, Mrs. Olubusola has successfully launched and managed multiple ventures, demonstrating a keen ability to innovate and drive business growth. She is happily married and with children, family life, while maintaining a demanding professional schedule. This balance is a testament to the fact that she preaches the actual values that she advocates for. Welcome on the show today, Mrs. Busola.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Taylor.
Yeah, viewers, we are looking at a very fascinating topic, like I earlier mentioned, raising a mini you or an entirely different being. Now, in our quest to raise our children, we are trapped between the option of raising them to be a carbon copy of ourselves or allowing them to be a separate individual. This gives a kind of challenge. How do we strike this balance? Some time ago, I was talking with somebody and she made mention of something. She said, I don't want to raise my child or my children the way I was raised. And I asked why. She said, the world I was raised for no longer exists. Do you understand that? That the world she was raised for no longer exists. So she wouldn't want to raise her child the way she was raised. So how do we strike this balance of shaping our children into a model of ourselves or allowing them to be an entirely different individual? I start with you, ma'am. What is your take on this?
Okay, thank you so very much for that question. My take from what the lady said, the fact that she won't want to raise a child the way she was raised because that world does not exist anymore. I would like to agree with that because before now...
Really? That world doesn't exist anymore?
It doesn't. Before now, you hardly find a child able and proud enough or bold enough to actually express himself or herself. The world we were raised at that time where our parents' opinion matters and you really do not have a say. But what is available now? The option available is when you're asking a child, in fact, taking a decision on behalf of the child, you call the child and ask questions. One, then two, based on the fact that what the child has done in time past, you have more of conversational method. I think that's the basic word.
No, but we are talking about a mini you, the you that you are. Would you want your child to be you?
Okay, for me, I wouldn't want my child to be 100% me.
100%. So to what extent
Okay,
do you want your child to be you?
Okay, let me say this. I would want my child to be a better version of me, helping her to actually
Helping
discover.
her.
Yeah.
What about him?
Okay, helping me as well. Okay. All right. Okay, helping each one of them. Let me use that word.
Okay.
Helping each of them to bring out that there is something in each and every child. And until we discover that, and sometimes you find us as adults growing up and we are saying, when did I become like this? Because somewhere along the line there were disconnects. So
Okay.
it's a personal journey. So as parents that understand that, I think personally I will help my child discover who or she is, our strength, our weakness, our threats and opportunities. Because every child are not the same, and there is no child that does not have strength. There is no child that does not have weakness. There is no child that does not have strength. There is no child that does not have opportunities.
The strength or the weakness can be part of you too.
Yes.
Because that child is your child.
Yes.
Now you want to shape that child into an adult,
Yes.
not a mini you,
Yes.
partly you,
Yes.
and partly who he should be or
Yes.
she should be.
Yes.
So, sir, how do we strike this balance? And you don't want that child, or do you still agree that the word you were raised in does not exist, or the word you were raised for no longer exists?
Okay, on this subject matter, I think it might be better if I try to create a foundational background for these explanations.
Okay.
You know, maybe for me, it's because I've always seen the word parent, for me anyway, I've seen the word parent to come from, let's say, two words: pay, rent.
Pay rent.
And yes,
Wow.
you are paying
Okay.
rent.
We are paying rent.
Yeah, you are paying rent.
Fantastic.
And why am I thinking of it in such a way? It's because if you really understand, you will see that children are not really yours. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of how children came.
Okay.
Because the scripture makes us to understand, I think it's Psalm 127, that children are the heritage of the Lord.
Yeah.
When you say something is an heritage, possession. So meaning they belong to God.
They're not
But you see,
the
when
original.
you have a house that you live in, you know, even if you don't build that house, you are paying rent for it.
Yeah.
The house belongs to somebody, but you can say, I'm going
You
to
are
my
the
house.
occupant
So
for
exactly,
that
you're the
time.
occupant.
Yeah.
So what you are paying for is for the rent. You are managing it. And you know, if you look at it again in John 1:13, the scripture was saying that he was talking about those who were born of God. He said, who were not born according to the will of man, according to blood, according to the desire of men, but according to the will of God. So meaning that when you look at children, you will know that they belong to God. We are just caretakers. So
Okay.
if we have that perception, because you see, there are many parents who feel that they've tried all the cool, and children do not end up being what they are trying to raise them to be. But if you have that perception that this belongs to God and you are just a caretaker to manage, your perception on how you want to raise them then differ. And so having said that, that perception, that knowledge gives me the idea that whom I want to raise, meaning that the person who gave it to me has a perception in mind, has an intention in mind, has a purpose in mind. That purpose in mind determines, and that's why he was saying to Jeremiah, he said, before I formed thee, I knew thee. But that's the same for everybody. Before we were formed, he said, I have a purpose in mind. There is a reason.
I knew you have named
Exactly.
you.
I have consecrated you to be a prophet, meaning that there is a reason for such creation. So when we give birth to and when we give birth to children, it's not simply because it's based on human desire, because I came in contact with my wife. So when I have that perception in me, then I know that there is a purpose. So what is my duty? The rent I'm paying is the so when I say the parent now, so the paying of the rent is the caretaking, is nurturing the child. You know, this is how you will know, because there's a part of the scripture where God was saying, look, a mother might forget the suckling of a child. He said, but I won't forget. So if you look at the suckling,
So
that's
it
an
is
infant.
beyond the mother. Somebody
Meaning that someone who owns it is always
in that child.
consistently looking at that child. So even when you you are able to doze off and sleep
Even if
off.
you lose guards,
There is
an
somebody saying
external
that
eye
this is my
also
property.
watching.
So when you look at it, then you need to ask, what then is the purpose of this child? What should this child become? So when you think of that, then you go out of the picture. You know that you are not trying to force a child to be like you. Whosoever made that statement that you're making reference to must have been saying it also because, you know, in the days, our parents have a perception of how they want us to be.
In our days.
Disregarding
But
our
as
strength.
caretakers, don't you think they have that duty, they have that responsibility?
They have the duty and responsibility to guide.
to guide.
Yes, to guide. Not necessarily to impose. So now I'll give
No,
you an
for
instance.
you to be a guardian, you should have a focus, you should have a vision. There is something, it's like you are modeling, you are molding, you have something in mind that you are looking out for. That is why you can't be disappointed to say, it didn't turn out the way I planned it.
Let me give you an instance, man. You know, in as much as we may have that modeling, give you an instance. You see typical children growing up in those days. Now things are changing anyway. Typical children growing up in those days, and there are certain career that parents love their children to partake in, to go into. So you see medical doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. But then you imagine a child. My dad at some point said, you look like an intelligent one. Why didn't you go for medicine? But trust me, if you bring mathematics to me, I will fail.
Yeah.
So you need to understand the strength. He didn't force me. I mean, he didn't enforce. He was just of that opinion that you are very intelligent. Don't you think medicine might be cool? And I don't even have interest in it. So the point I'm making about that is the parent is a model. You model, you guide. Okay, you put through, but you don't necessarily enforce at all times. You know, there are certain things you need to understand. That's what she was referring to when you said sometimes you have to communicate. Understanding the strength of your child. Understanding when you see a child that, you know, at younger age, the child is always running. Who knows? That child might probably excel as an athlete. But then we have a perception and say this child, no. According to all, is only on serious people that are into sports. But now parents can have the perception because we know what that kind of career is bringing to the table. So you see the orientation is changing, but in those days there are so many of this work that have been coming obsolete because of AI.
Okay, I agree that every child has his or her own unique identity, even from creation. But we still can't rule out this fact that there are deposits of every parent in their children. And you see some children, if you know their parent, without being to say, oh, you are the daughter of your mother, you are the son of your father. I have a daughter, for instance, looking at her when I was her age, she's actually a carbon copy of me. So when people complain or talk about her, I laugh with him because this was me when I was her age. Do you understand? So now, how do I separate myself, my identity, and to what extent will those deposits in the parents affect the shaping of that child? Remember, we said the child has his or her own identity and also has deposits of the parents. And if we want to nurture, if we want to shape in the child, we are talking about interest, we are talking about strength, we are talking about belief, which they also picked from the parents. So to what extent will those natural traits affect the shaping of the child, ma'am?
Okay, when you talk about natural traits affecting a child, it's still based on the parents, the perception of the parents. A particular child that is very restless will be in a particular family, and the family nurtures that strength. And another child is in another family, and that family says, you're too restless, you're not serious, you're not this. Based on the perception of the caretakers in this example that we're looking at, will help that child to become whatever in life. How do I mean? While I was growing, for example, I was told Abebelukeje and all that. I was very yes, very, very restless. I happened to be the only girl amongst 4 other boys. So you can imagine I was a tomboy. And then I go around with wherever they go, I'll do all that. Yes, as in school, they'll call for people, you'll find me there. And then somewhere along the line, because my mom feels that how will a girl child be doing this? Because of our own perception where she was coming from.
A girl child is supposed to be calm, supposed to be quiet,
cool,
sit down, cross her legs, she shouldn't talk.
as in don't go out, because she's the last born of our own family and where she's
Okay.
coming from.
Yeah.
So for that, at some point I will shout as in, I don't want you there. And somewhere by the time I was 16, that's outside of school now, secondary school, I felt a girl child shouldn't be. And before you know it, gradually I
You're
started withdrawing.
Wow.
And then at some point, when I entered school, that child me came back again. I joined politics.
Oh.
And then my mom, somewhere, she saw the poster. I don't even know,
Hey,
she stumbled on the
Omoni.
poster. I said, what is it with you? Did I send you to school to be a part of it? I said, but then I just want to be people. I just
That
want
is who
people.
you are.
Yeah,
That
I
is your
just
passion. That is
want-
your identity.
but it wasn't a very good time, because she was responsible for our school fees and all that. I said, it's like you had more than enough money. That was why you felt you could throw
You should
it
go
on
into school politics.
politics, and it wasn't an easy thing. Thank God for another parent that said, I think this girl, she's not doing this, she's not doing anything out of place. And that really helped my mom. Not at so much length, but at least she could listen to my own side of the story.
Yeah,
and
she
then
could hear
gradually
you out. She was able to listen.
I was becoming better. And being the first child, my mom practically yells at you when she talks. And for example, I'm talking about traits and
Yeah.
inherent abilities now. I found out that I yell at younger people.
Too, because
Too,
your mom
because-
yells at home, so
because
it's
of-
normal to yell at people too.
Then, at some point, I think I was in my final year, and my younger brother came living with me, and we started reading books together. And I found out that yelling on younger people doesn't make them to understand what you're saying.
Doesn't even make them
Rather,
conform.
it makes them a bit more rebellious, and they want to do and say whatever it is. But you know, at that time it was my mom, and if you don't do it, then you will face the consequences. And then that makes me to begin to understand the value of conversation. I didn't have the opportunity, and I also told my mom, I said, I won't have to beat my children. That's a personal resolution for me, before they are able to listen to me. And my mom said, how come? Are you sure it's going to be? So that's why I'm saying that the perception and where she's coming from. Before, in my house, you come in, this place is clean enough, my mom pulls her clothes, her shoes, and everywhere to her is dirty. You will be beaten before any explanation.
That's an African mother.
African woman.
Oh, she will know the time when you'll be helpless.
Good. When you are really, really helpless, like around 12 a.m., she will wake you up. You remember? And then all of those things shaping me up, and told myself that this wasn't going to help my own children.
Even though her approach seems very crude, hard, waking you up by 12 a.m. but it's shaping you positively.
Yes, it did actually.
It helped you to form your own perception on how you want to be a better parent.
parents, yes.
Wow, viewers, so much to be talked about, so much insight still coming, but that will be right after this short break. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Audio Jungle.
Welcome back from that short break. Is still your family moment show, keeping us together. We have in the studio Mr. Ayodeji and Mrs. Olubusola. I'm still your anchor and faculty member, Stella Eriamiento. We are looking at the topic, raising a mini you or allowing your child to be a different identity. Don't you think there will be conflict when a parent wants the children or the child to be a carbon copy of themselves versus allowing the unique identity of that child to be nurtured and developed? If there will be, what will be your advice to such parents?
Well, I think what we need to do here is to strike a balance. The truth of the matter is, parents can't just allow children to be what they want to be.
Okay, even if you know
Even
that
if-
they are different from you, they have their own
Yes,
different identity.
that's why you
so
are
to what
there
extent?
as-
So how do you come in?
That's exactly what I was trying to say something earlier, because you said something very profound earlier, that what about the traits,
Yeah,
like the
there is
DNA certain
inherent-
traits,
there is inherent in that child.
There's something Yoruba says that when a child is born, the child will reborn himself or herself. That and that has to do with character, that has to do with culture, that has to do with behavior and the likes. So even if you have inculcated the right culture in a child, that child still has his or her own responsibility to know what to take. You're making reference to contact, discipline and the like. Can we have an extreme cases? Of course, there can be extreme cases. There can also be extreme cases of allowing children to say, okay, all in the name of I want you to be what you are, what you are
different from
me. There can
me.
be extreme cases. There can also be extreme cases of I want you to be like me. So we need to put a balance and know where to put it.
So how do we strike this balance?
So where the balance is in is, firstly, parents need to. Now, for parents who allow children to be what they want to be, your first duty is parenting, not being friends. Now, the contemporary thing about parenting now is that be your children's friends. And parents have put that as a primary course and put parenting as secondary. So when you be all in the name because you want to understand them, you want to have a conversation with them, and in the process because you want to understand them, you don't even parent, you don't guide, you don't model. All you do is, okay, is that what you want?
How do you model if you are not friends with them? You cannot communicate with them. They can't come out.
Okay. So
and open up to you. So how do you achieve the parenting?
There is this quote that I gave that I said, if you can't accept my correction, then I won't offer you my direction. Now, if I can't tell you what to do, if you don't believe so much in my leadership as a parent, then there's a problem.
So how can you lead me if I can't tell you what my problem is? If you can't know what I feel and what I would need. And now, let me cite a practical example. Now, like I said earlier, my daughter, looking at her at that age, I can understand what is going on around her because I was once like that, and because she is more like a carbon copy of me at that age, I could understand. So even when every other person around seems like, this girl, I will tell them, calm down. If I jokingly told somebody sometimes, I said, if you were the one that nurtured me, perhaps I wouldn't have grown. You are seeing me today now, I look polished, right? But when I was her age, I did more. So I can relate. But what if it's a different ball game? She's now a different identity. Different me.
How did you allow to get to a different identity? You see, parenting begins with a tender age. Now, even when a child has taken certain inherent
maybe that is how God designed her.
That's where I'm going.
If that child has been designed, wired differently from the parent, I won't be able to understand or relate
as
much as if that child is a mini-me.
Just like we've established, everyone is different. But like you've also rightly put, people have certain similar traits. Okay. But even as you grow, you will realize that some of those traits will be
naturally.
Exactly. Naturally, then your real own trait will begin to come
out.
You understand?
To want to
but what your duty is, and that's why I'm saying that the first thing you do is parenting, not necessarily being friends. And parenting is not about being an enemy. And maybe that's the perspective.
I would need you to shed more light or more insight on that.
On the
parenting and not being a friend. I'm still trying to imagine how I want to be a parent and at the same time not being friends.
No, what I said is, so basically, I'm not saying that parents won't be friends with their kids. But I'm saying that your primary purpose is not being friends. Your primary purpose is parenting. And
what I'm saying. How can you be a parent without being friends?
Okay, look at it. Many a times, because you want your kids to be so expressive in front of you, you give them allowance and say, okay, talk. And because you don't want to scold them, because it's believed that if you scold them, they might probably lose their self-esteem. I mean, who are we following actually? Who are we taking after? We're trying to take after the Western world. And if I ask you, would you love your children to become the way the Western kids are? There's a possibility you won't want it, because those kids, the value, the standard of morality over there is degraded to the minimum.
But that's the Gen Z. We call it
not
the
Gen
Gen Z.
See, what we say now.
We are saying that is where the world is now. The world has evolved. Is no more like the person I mentioned earlier said the world she was raised for no longer exists.
Interesting.
So that's the world that exists now.
This world too will eventually come later and say their own world in their own time. Just like every parent will say in my own time. But I want us to understand something. Certain principles remain. Okay. Now, when it gets to a level where where there's no authority, because the parent is an authority. But you see, in a place where you become friends, just friends, and there is no authority, it means that the child can decide what he wants to say. And that's how you are saying in the policy of the Western world. It started from this little thing from home, where he said, don't beat a child. Don't discipline a child. How many of us that were beaten have gone bad in our lives?
So you are saying it's not the case of spoil the rod and spare the child.
Oh yes, I strongly
not
believe
spare
that.
the rod and spoil the child. Now we are sparing the rod.
We are sparing the rod.
We are spoiling the child.
Exactly, because it is very essential that we understand that kids sometimes they are in our care. They are looking at us. You see, we're talking about traits, because part of the traits that kids learn are things you do. They are watching you, aside what you even told them.
We're actually role models.
Yeah, aside what you tell them, what you do is also what you see them do. If you use
But what
cursing
I
words,
do is as a result of how I was shaped.
And somewhere
Okay,
I
sorry.
don't want there to be a mini me.
May I say something? According to Alvin Toffler, he said the illiterate people of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write. That's how we define illiteracy.
Yes.
He said, but there are those who cannot unlearn, learn and
and
relearn.
relearn.
So meaning that as human beings, even if you grew up in certain ways, it's now left for you to modify. That's why you are asking, do I want my child to be a mini-me or to be a totally different me? I don't want it to be totally different. I don't want it to be a mini-me. So I want it to be a modified me.
A modified me.
Yeah,
Wow.
because there must be that trait. There must be that nature. I mean, there must
Because this my
an
child,
apple
my
does
child
not
has
fall far
me.
from the tree.
My
right?
child has me.
Yes, but somewhere along the line,
Yeah.
that child will have some form of modifications that has
That
also
they can
happened
pick from
to
the
you.
environment, that they can pick from peer pressures.
Thank you
they
for
can
saying
pick
that.
from
You know
everywhere.
what? The kids
Yes.
are trained not just by you. They are trained by environment.
Even
but there
the
are some
community.
things that when they come home, they need to unlearn.
Yes.
There are certain traits that they've picked from friends, that they've picked from community,
That's why I
that
don't have
they've
to
picked
be their
from schools.
friends if I want them to unlearn.
Exactly, because if you are their friend, then they won't unlearn. Oh, please, shut up, mom.
Shut up, but I don't be more.
Now you see, even your mind cannot even. You can't fathom it. You're telling me shut up. You sure you're okay?
No.
And you know that-
It's being expressive.
Everyone is being
It's
expressive.
Children-
not being expressive.
You know, sometimes
But-
children will not even open their mouth to tell you shut up. Their attitude, the body language.
Yeah.
And then you are wondering, where did this come from?
And those were the things our parents taught us to learn.
You
So
know,
you
in
don't
those
let
days,
just
my
words.
mom would not tell you that your body language is negative. Because anything that is close by will correct
Hey,
it.
we will let you know.
So that next time when
Fine.
she's talking to you, you don't look at her straight in the eyes.
And drag your feet.
But I am
Or
not
do-
also at any point saying that parents should not have emotional intelligence. She said something about communication, which is very key. You must communicate. Once you hold the rod in one hand, you use the other hand to bring them back.
Yes.
So if you discipline them, they use the other hand and say, I love you, okay? Part of the reason I'm doing it, you must communicate. You must also give incentives. So not just when they've misbehaved that you punish, you also encourage them when they've done something well. Just take them out. Our parents don't do that. I mean, what's Christmas that you're going to a park? What's park?
Well, for my own dad.
Oh, you had that?
Yeah, my father was a fan of taking you out. I don't know where he got that from. But that's one thing you'll see my dad with. Christmas, Easter, you must, once you have done well, and then when we get there, for people that have done well, you will get an extra, maybe you have opportunity to do an interview at LTV at that time. Yes! If you do well. My
Not
father.
your parents?
My father.
Amazing.
Not even my mom. My father. Is that
There
kind
has
of
to be a balance in the house. You don't expect your mom to also be like that.
No, but
you
we
know,
eat
our
chicken
parents have
during
this,
Christmas.
Our parents have this mentality that someone has to be firm in the house, and I quite agree with that.
Yes.
Someone has to be firm
Or
in the
else-
house. Both parents can't be permissive.
Steve.
No, both
If-
parents can't be permissive.
Even permissiveness will not give you what you want. Look at the people that would like to be like, even the Western world that we're talking about, people that are doing innovations, that are behind the kind of technology we're looking at. They are always firm. Like I said, you can't have hard choices you can't have easy choices and expect to have easy life. It doesn't work that way. So you have to be there as parent. Like you said, parents are basically for guidance. Oh, look at this. Take a look at this. You can't be here. And then the way we now go about it also differ from one parent to the other. But as you grow as a parent, for example, you see, oh, the way I'm dealing with this child is not good. You begin to take a cue. And then your child also pays attention. So if as a parent, you are willing to learn and your children can see that, they also see that as I am growing, I can also begin to learn and drop those things that are not making my parents happy, that not even making me happy, and you see them becoming a better version of themselves.
Wow, wow, wow. It's been an explosive, insightful session on today's episode with Mr. Ayodeji and Mrs. Olubusola in the studio, treating the topic raising a mini you or an entirely different person. What will be your parting word, Mr. Ayodeji?
Okay, well, I'd just like to say that parenting is an assignment from God. And when you're parenting, first be their parent before you become their friends. That is very, very essential.
Be their parent before you be their friend. So don't try to make them a copy of you.
Otherwise, you might regret in the future. That's the truth.
Wow.
You might regret
Wow. Wow. And to you, ma'am?
Okay, for me, it's been an amazing time, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. So, okay, for me, I'll say this, that easy choices will ultimately give birth to hard life. And then hard choices rather, will always give birth to easy life. So as parents, we should help our children to make choices that will help them to become better versions of themselves.
Wow, that is it, viewers. We shouldn't try to make them a carbon copy of ourselves or try to raise them to be a mini us, a mini me, but they should be a better version of ourselves. The world we are brought up to live in has been modified. Somebody said no longer exists, but values remain. Whatever is good 20 years ago still remains good, whether you like it or not. We shouldn't want them to be our carbon copy. We must recognize that they have their own identity, which must be nurtured, and they can be a better version of ourselves. Don't forget to follow us on our social media handles, and if you have your thoughts, why not go ahead, drop them in the comment section, and it would be attended to. Thank you. I remain Stella Eremiato, your anchor and faculty member. It's your Family Moment show. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayodeji and Mrs. Olubusola, and our wonderful viewers. See you in the next episode. Don't forget once again to follow us and stay tuned for more. Thank you. Bye.